This is the second video in a set of two videos talking about how to take care of your string instrument. We're going to talk right now about some specifics about violin and viola care. So the first thing to be aware of about violins and violas is the sponge or the shoulder rest. Now the sponge or the shoulder rest is designed to help prop up the instrument to make it a little easier to hold and also just a little bit more comfortable to hold. And they're great tools, and it's always recommended for a student to have these. But some things we don't want to do when we've got the shoulder rest. The first is that when we put it on, we don't want to set the violin or the viola down on its face. And this is always true of any string instrument. We don't want to set it down on its face because putting it down on its face can cause damage to the strings, and it can also put extra pressure on the bridge and cause cracks and other problems with that. And so when you're putting on your sponge or shoulder rest, what you'll want to do is you'll want to find a way to not put that down on its face. The way I usually do it is I hold the violin at the neck, a violin or viola at the neck, and in my left hand, and I put it on my leg so that the strings are facing away from myself, and then I can quickly and easily put on a sponge or shoulder rest in that position. We also want to be aware that we'll want to take that sponge or shoulder rest off of the instrument before we put it away in its case. The reason for that is cases are designed to hold the violin or viola snugly inside. And as soon as we add something inside of the case, like that sponge, it's going to raise the height of the instrument, and it's going to make it a little bit too big for that case. And if I push down hard enough on the top of that case, then it's actually going to cause, again, cracks or problems with the bridge or extra stress on the strings. So always make sure that, especially if you find that you're closing the lid of the case and it just feels like it's not closing very well, it could be that the sponge or shoulder rest is on there, but always make sure you keep that off the instrument. We also don't want to leave a sponge or shoulder rest inside of the case. And the reason for this is that same reason as the other, is that we can put extra pressure on the instrument, whether that's underneath the instrument on the back where we usually have our shoulder rest, or if it's up in the neck, if we leave it up kind of close to there. So the general rule is, unless there's a spot specifically devoted to keeping a sponge or shoulder rest inside the case, that we either get an outside case, and they do make outside cases that you can strap on there, or we just don't leave it inside the case, just keep it in your music bag or somewhere else. If your case comes with Velcro or other straps that can tie down on that instrument, make sure and use them as it can help protect that instrument just a little bit extra. And that's the main reason for that is maybe the case opens up or something and you didn't realize you didn't zip it. And if the instrument falls out at that point, then it's going to get some pretty severe damage. Always make sure that if you're playing your violin, or excuse me, when you're not playing your violin, that you put it in a safe place. That you've got it on a flat surface, sitting down on that, not leaning up against a wall, or especially not on the floor, so that it doesn't get stepped on. Now, with our cellos and our basses, the first thing to be aware of is the end pin. When you pull out the end pin to play on the cello or the bass, you want to tighten down the screw, and you don't want to over tighten that screw, as that can strip the threads, and it can make it so that end pin won't tighten anymore. When you put away the end pin, you also want to tighten that down, and you just want to tighten it down in both instances, when you pull it out and when you put it away, so that it's just snug. The reason for tightening when you put it away is so that end pin doesn't fall out when you try and pick up that cello. When you're setting down the cello, this is a little bit different from the violin or viola. You want to set that cello or bass on its side. This is both in the case and outside of the case. And that just keeps it safe. There's less surface area when you put it up on its side for that instrument to be stepped on. Now, if you find that something has gone wrong with your instrument, if there are cracks or other things, bring them in and report them. It's always safer to say, hey, there's this problem here on this instrument, than to let it go. Many cracks, especially cracks in instruments or other things, can start to create long-term problems if we don't get them taken care of early on. So cracks can actually continue to develop and get worse over time if we don't get them repaired by a luthier. And you always do want to make sure that when you're getting anything repaired on an instrument, that you either take it to somebody that you know is qualified to deal with this, or especially a professional luthier for more severe problems, a professional violin maker, that they can take a look at that problem and In addition, if you find, so these are some of the general problems that we find sometimes on instruments. If there are cracks in the instruments, the biggest one. You also might find cracks in seams, which is where the top of the instrument, the bottom of the instrument, and the ribs start coming away from each other. That's one to get taken care of as quickly as you can, as the sounding post inside might shift or move positions a little bit. If you find that either pegs aren't tightening very well or are too tight that you can't turn them at all, or your fine tuners aren't working very well. Those are something that we can fix pretty easily. If your bow's not tightening, or if your end pin screw is not tightening down, and the general rule is if anything seems amiss, bring it in and have us look at it, and we'll let you know if there's something we can do about it, or we can bring it into a repair shop and see if they can fix it. The last thing to be aware of is just to take care of your case. Now, the cases are designed to help keep the instrument safe inside of it, but they're also pretty fragile, and if we don't have a good case, then that instrument's not going to be taken care of very well inside of it. So treat your case as if it was an instrument. Make sure not drop it, don't hit it up against stuff, don't try not to bump it, anything. And whether or not the instrument is inside the case or not, always treat that case like it itself is an instrument. One tiny detail too is with rosin, because of its tendency to crack and to leave behind dust, we always want to leave the rosin inside some sort of a case or a wrapping, so that rosin dust doesn't stay inside of the case when we put it away. If you have any questions, you can either leave a comment at under this YouTube video here, or you can call the Utah Conservatory. Our number is 435-649-6292.